Hi, everybody. This is Patty Toledo. This is Creative Raids. I know we have been out for a few weeks and it's my fault. I take full responsibility. My fault. I am not really good being everywhere and recording the podcast at the same time. I try, but it's so hard. But today we have, besides my lovely co-host Charly, that is always here helping me, we have the lovely Jacki Vause from Dimozo, also super experienced in podcasts. We're gonna promote your podcast later as well, Jacki. But welcome to Creative Raids, and
You.
please introduce yourself to, like I said, the people that are living under the rock and didn't see your lovely face around yet. Like, I find it hard to believe, though.
I'm prolific. Hi, my name's Jacki Vause, and my company Demoso is a PR and marketing agency specializing in games, technology, AI, and emerging technologies. And yeah, I've had the absolute privilege of working with Patty for many years, and obviously knowing Charly through the industry. And yeah, and I do have my own podcast, which is called The Rest is PR, which basically talks about communications and all aspects of communications. We discussed David Beckham and his latest Netflix series, through to the John Ricciello from Unity and his exit. So we kind of touch on all sorts of things. But I do know that your podcast, Patty and Charly, is more around the games industry, and that really is an industry in which I live. So I'm excited to be here.
You're more than welcome. And I wanted to do a shout out before we continue to Sophia that couldn't be here today. But Sophie, we're thought of you. You're like I like Charlie. Like, yay.
Like you, Patty, has been on my podcast. So yeah, missing you,
Yeah.
Sophia.
Hi. And I wanted, as we talk about the games industry, I want to start from the elephant in the room, because that's one thing that I have been hearing from publishers, developers, people trying to join the industry for weeks now. It's about the recent dark times in the industry, all the layoffs. Like, really, we are in the dark. Are we in the dark ages of the industry? Like, I think games industry is an industry that has seen its fair share of crises throughout the years. But I wanted to get your what are your insights of the situation right now? Like, how do you see it, and is it really that bad? But we're, for the listeners, we're also, like, we're gonna turn this around, because that's what we do here. We are about practical terms and how to solve things. But I think it's important for us to start from what is the reality that we're facing. What is it? What are your insights in relation to that?
So I, like you, am on many forums within the industry, and it's shocking. You literally are seeing people coming onto forums like day in, day out, like just the UK games industry forum. Every day we've got people coming on saying, I'm QA, I'm out of a job, I'm social media, I'm out of job. And for those people who are being laid off right now, it's a real shocking reality, and it's really brutal and horrible and scary. And all I can say to those people is keep the faith, and be sure that it will be okay. It will be okay. There are companies that are still hiring. There are companies out there that still require people, but maybe in a slightly different way. And we'll come on to talk about that when we're talking about possible solutions. But my first advice is to just say it will be all right. Things will get better. I think from a holistic view of the industry, I think that, and I was talking to Vile, who is ex Rovio actually. He was my boss at Rovio. He's now taking a bit of a break, but we were discussing this at the Moloko 10th anniversary, and we were saying that we really think it's a bit of a natural correction that's happening in the industry. I think during COVID, we just literally dined out on a captive audience. Studios were racing to recruit people. many jobs were created. There was many acquisitions going on as larger publishers were buying up more studios, or VCs were buying or investing. So there was this massive gold rush, and there is just this sort of natural correction. And unfortunately, some of these poor people who've been laid off are collateral damage from that. But because of that gold rush, there was incoming VC into different studios, into different geos. And I do see people coming onto those forums going, we are still hiring, we are still looking. So it may be that people need to look a little bit further afield. Remote working was one of the great things that came out of the pandemic. So you can work for a studio that is in Berlin from Birmingham. So, there are things that we might have to adjust our mindset a little bit and look a bit further afield for work, or think about working in slightly different genres of games, for example. But I think people still want people. I still want people. So, maybe even shifting your demand or your requirement of a job, maybe slightly applying your skill set to different areas, might be something to think about. And finally, I think it's so important to just reinforce that, this is an industry that historically grows. We're historically on a trajectory that is up. We have had a slight dip down, but it's still going. And I do think we need to just remind ourselves of that sometimes in these bad times.
Charlie, I will give you the microphone, but something that Jackie said. Okay, do you think this is comparable to the crisis from the 80s when we had this extreme saturation of the market with too many games going out? I think that although in the 80s it was more about the players than the industry directly, but would you say that is comparable to that in regards to numbers, or is it a new reality from the digital era that the COVID created? Did I ask a very complicated question? uh, what do you think? Is it comparable to the 80s?
Are you asking me or Charlie?
Both of you. Whoever wants to answer first.
24 in the 80s, so I don't really remember that very well. I
Fair
know that
enough.
we
I
always
read.
had games in the house, so it was fine. I was okay at that
Stop
time.
showing off, Charlie. We're Eastern.
I feel so old right now. So, Jackie, remember the 80s?
I do remember the 80s, and I think there were different. I do think there were different forces at play, but still forces, still market forces, still economic forces. But I do think it's a bit different when we are looking at all the things that we have at our disposal now. So if you look at things like social media didn't happen in the 80s. Telecommunications was much harder in the 80s. Certainly broadband wasn't there in the 80s, so it's a different reality, I think. And another thing is that I think through time we've been looking at people being specialists
Mm.
in things. And particularly in the games industry, you have been encouraged, or one was encouraged, to specialize in one skill set. So, like, be a designer, or be in sound, or be in QA, be in coding, be in monetization, be in advertising. So, everybody was encouraged to specialize. And I think now what we're looking at, and I was talking to Peter Koyman, who's ex Miniclip, who's just set up Half Moon Gaming, which is an AI game studio, which is incredible what they're turning out so quickly. He was saying to me, because we were talking about how AI might threaten jobs, and he was saying to me, it's different. What AI is doing is it's asking people to become less specialized and more wearing multiple hats. So, because AI will not work without data, and it will not work without people. So we need to be able to look at ourselves and the tools that we're given and adjust ourselves to those tools. So, he was telling me about a guy who is an engineer, a data analysis guy, but he's also really good at coding. So, so we need to wear multiple multiple hats now. We need to be multitaskers or multi-skilled, or more, as some people are saying, generalist in our skill set. And I think that, that the 80s would never allow you to do that. You were in your box, you were in your lane. Whereas now, because we are in a much more communicative and tool-based society, we are able to put on those different hats.
Agree. Oh, okay. And again, Charlie, I will give you the microphone. I swear to God, Jack and I are having a discussion now. Uh, but I think the thing with the generalist and the specialist is even more current than people think. I know people that are generalists that until a few years ago couldn't get a job no matter what, because when they would see the job descriptions, it was a lot about being as a specialist as you had to be an expert in a certain thing. Or even people like me that had experience in several areas were like it very foreign for the games industry. And I agree this is changing drastically, and I think AI will help these people as well to finally find their proper footing on the industry as well. But Charlie, the microphone is yours. What are
Thank you.
your insights around the
Yeah,
crisis?
I think it sort of adds to what Jackie was saying there, that you have to maybe give up that dream of your dream job. This is what I want to do. And if you're in that position where you don't have work, take chances. If someone's offering you a short-term contract or a short-term opportunity that isn't in your field of comfort, but a friend or a connection has offered it to you, and it's not going to cost you money, and you've got the headspace and the bandwidth to do it, always do it, because you never know, that might be actually what you're supposed to be doing the whole time. And without that kind of exposure to new and weird and strange jobs, you might never find what you're actually supposed to be doing. And that helps with the generalist sort of outlook on that. But how do you build those connections where you are getting these opportunities, Jackie? What do you think?
Oh, Charlie, you're talking my language in terms of building connections.
Fit in the door,
Doing things like
always.
we're doing, participate, get involved, get involved in the forums. There are many, many. I hate to be one of these Sunny Sally type characters, but there are, because it is dire. And let's
Mm,
face it, people are really peed off. They're really depressed, very, very demotivated and dejected and scared. And I do understand that, but there are support systems out there. There are places that you can get involved. So first off, go to your local industry, like an industry group. Like, for
mm,
example, we've got Yuki, which is a fantastic industry group in the UK. Patty and I worked with different industry groups in Sweden. There are industry groups all over the world. So that's your first place. There are loads of forums. There are industry forums that are associated with podcasts like Deconstructor of Fun. There are industry forums just associated with being in the industry, like the UK Games Industry Slack group. So get on your Slack groups, get on your forums, listen to podcasts, more podcasts, see where those opportunities can be unveiled. Because
mm,
I don't know about you guys, but I will listen to the Narvik podcast or the Deconstructor Fun podcast or your podcast, or Sophie Vo's podcast, and I will get lots of ideas.
mhm,
And I will think, oh, I need to reach out to that person. I want to talk to that person about this. And do you know what? The loveliest thing about our industry is that we are very collaborative. Yes,
mhm,
we're competitive, but we're very collaborative. And I think certainly I saw a guy on the UK games industry Slack who'd just been laid off from Epic. He was social media manager. I knew one of my contacts was looking for a social media manager. I slotted them together.
mhm,
Now, that's
Yep.
only because I saw him posting on that particular Slack group. So post away, tell people that you're there, tell people you're open for work. Do that very basic thing of putting open for work on your LinkedIn. It's a
mhm,
very basic thing, but do it quickly, because people are now typing into their searches open for work on LinkedIn. So all of those things, just get involved. Go to events. There are lots of events. There's Pocket Gamer Connects, there's Games Forum, there's White Nights, there's Moby Dictum, all sorts of different events that I'm going to get into trouble with all my friends in events that I haven't mentioned. Gamescom, GDC, just go. And I know these things have ticket prices, but I think a lot of the event organisers are going to be doing things to facilitate people who have been laid off and are encouraging them to be at events. So network as much as you can, and we're so lucky with the the internet and all of the things and the communications tools around us that we can actually put ourselves out there. My final thing, I know I've been talking a lot, but I'm very passionate about this, is, as Charly said, just make sure that you are thinking openly about what you can do, and be open to opportunity and ask for help.
Yep.
That's the biggest lesson I've learned in my 56 years on this planet, is ask for help when you need help. You must do it. It doesn't make you a lesser person. Just cast yourself out there, and I swear the universe will come back and do something to help.
Definitely. And just to add to that, I think when you are applying for these jobs where you don't see yourself as a perfect fit, apply anyway. Because what's the worst that could happen? Like, the worst that happens is they look at your thing and say no. You're not going to lose your legs, your head's not going to fall off, life's going to carry on. So apply anyway, because that person with all of the essentials, all of the desirables, probably doesn't actually exist anyway. So send off that application. That's always my advice.
I mean, when I recruit people, I'm very unusual when I recruit, because I basically say to people, just send me your CV and I'll work out if I can fit you in. Because I do genuinely believe that you can't build a square box for a round person. And everybody is different, and everybody brings different skill sets. So if I look at my cake and I know I'm missing some raisins from the recipe, then if somebody who looks like currants is coming along, I think, oh, I can slightly change the recipe and maybe put currants in instead of raisins. So do what Charly said. Definitely apply for as many jobs as you can, because also a lot of people have the systems where they keep a CV and they think, oh, this doesn't quite fit this, but it does. I know I've got something coming up, or this is interesting to me for various reasons, or I think I might be losing somebody in a department coming up, or I might have maternity cover or paternity cover. So cast yourself out there in as many ways as you can.
Yeah, I would like to add that maybe if you don't fit 100%, which 99% of the time that will be a really nice email or letter together with your application helps. Or if you know someone in that company that can give you a warm recommendation, that's a really good way to do it too, because a lot of times we don't hire based on skills only. I would say 99% of the time you don't hire because of skills, because a person with a great personality that is going in the right direction, you can teach and they will grow to that position. But a person with the best skills out there but a shitty personality is not going to get very far. Like, you can't
100%.
change personality. You can change skills, you can improve skills, but you cannot change personality. So finding the company that you fit, it works as well.
Be authentic as well. I hate it when people try to pretend to be something they're not, and
Yeah.
people do that when they're a little bit desperate. And if for example, we do check out people's social media feeds and stuff like that, you do that now when you're recruiting. And if somebody suddenly has decided they're going to do a million TikToks to just try to get, you know, it shows. So be authentic, be true to yourself, but be, when you do apply, show some, don't be randomly gunning your CVs out to hundreds of jobs, because again, as an employer, you're looking for one or two special people, And if you see, and honestly, you can see that scattergun approach when the CVs come your way, and you're like, oh, why didn't they bother? Why didn't they take a little bit of time out to look at what we do and look at our
Mhm.
clients and think about, that's for me in my job, by the way, not in just
Yep.
genuine, but take a look at the company that you're applying to, and just think about what they're looking for in terms of
Mhm.
their, and what you like about the company. One of the people that applied to me for a job said, I was on your website, and you know what? You've got some typos on this page, and that's really bad for a communications agency. I was like, what? Ah! I'm so to that person that I said, right, you're in for an interview. That's what I want to see. People who've got detail. So, even little things like that make you stand out
Yep.
as a person, as a candidate.
Yeah, that's very true. But I wanted to take this a little bit from the PR side because, of course, Jackie is a specialist on the PR side. And I wanted us to say we always talk when we talk about PR, people usually have this idea from either from a company point of view, from a brand point of view, or from a celebrity point of view that you need to have a PR agency. But I think there are a lot of lessons that we can learn from a personal point of view when it comes to how to deal with things and really improve our personal PR. And so I wanted to discuss a little bit that like what can we do from a personal level, and I would say also from a company level, in case if you are a company that is suffering, that had to lay out people, pay people off, and need to work around this crisis, what to do. And I wanted to start by saying I am a firm believer of giving first before you ask people for other things. So my 1% would be, if you want to stand out from the industry and like start being that person that is helping others
Mhm.
besides asking for help, because that really like it's a little bit of the Buddhist in me, like karma can be really good, help other people before you ask for help. But that would be my 2 cents, like try to mentor others, try to share your insights. If you're an expert in something, write articles about it, write, like share what you learn, share your personal projects. That can make a huge difference, especially when you're looking for a job, like seeing that presence. It's better than doing fake things just to feel like tick boxes on a CV, right? But what do you guys think that are the important things to do in relation to improving your personal PR and brand PR?
Do you want me to answer that?
Yep.
Go
I
first.
just feel like I'm doing an awful lot of talking. Poor old Charlie, it's just like she can't get a word in edgeways with me around.
No.
Um, but yeah, I think we are kind of approaching this. You're right, Patty. We need to look at it from both sides of the coin, because there are companies that are suffering and having to lay people off, and so they need to survive. That's why they're laying the people off. They need to survive. They need to get back up on there so that they can employ more people moving forward. So I say to those companies, you need to really examine what you're doing to get better, to be better, and maybe communicate a little bit better to the market what your plans are, because all the market has seen so far is the collateral damage of what you've done to save yourself.
Mhm.
So I think you need to think about your messaging very, as a company that's just gone through layoffs, and think about your messaging very carefully and very sensitively to those people who you've laid off. Because believe you me, they might be people you want to rehire
Mhm.
down the line, because there's a lot of talent that's come out there, and they honestly, whether your company has laid somebody off or whether you've parted ways with somebody and for a different reason, they're still an ambassador for your company. Whether they're still they can still give reportage about working for you and being part of your brand. So I think it's really important that when you are laying your people off, you explain to them very carefully why you're doing it, what you're going to do to support them, how you're going to help them. So that's a big shout out to companies to do this thing
Mm.
properly and sensitively. For the poor people who've gone through this in terms of personal branding, personal PR, couldn't agree with you more, Patty. If you can do some volunteering, if you can help out by just mentoring people, again, speak to local industry bodies, go on the Slack groups, go on the focus groups. You often find people who are looking for help. I'm working at the moment with the UK Game Changers, and I'm doing some mentoring with that with a wonderful lady who's just given up her very good job at Google to become an indie developer. So I'm actually helping her right now in helping with thinking about her own personal branding and her own personal PR. And a lot of that is based around, as Patty has said, giving back and
Mhm.
being active and being helpful and being supportive. And also just, and as Charlie said, being open to anything that comes your way while you're in this downturn. It's just tough though to get the positivity back
Mhm.
to do that. And so the other thing to do is honestly be kind to yourself. Do some sport, do some hobbies,
Mhm.
make most of the time, spend some time with your family, your children, whatever, just to get yourself back in a mental state that you can be recruited in. Because I do believe in the law of attraction. I do believe that when you're out there, you need to be positive and you need to be in the right frame of mind. You can't go to something desperate, otherwise you'll end up in a desperate situation. And that's a really hard thing to do. That's a really easy thing to say, and it's a really hard thing to physically do. But that's my advice.
And I think to sort of add to that, if you have lost your job or are in that position, I would say don't burn your bridges. It's very easy to have a knee jerk reaction and go on social media and say this company's shit or da 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 da. And that may be the case, but sometimes, as Patty said and as Jackie said, it's not always that company's choice to let people go. It's the only way a company can survive. And I'm not saying it's good or bad on either side, it depends on the situation. But I would always say try not to burn your bridges because those connections can be useful in the future. But also, yes, we're a global industry, but we're also a very, very small industry and people talk. And if you have been laid off, but you have kept those connections and you've kept things going well, perhaps the person that laid you off can put you forward for another job. Or if someone says to them, do you know anyone that's in this role I'm looking to hire? So I would always say, yeah, don't burn bridges.
That's so true. And, I have years ago, I was in a horrible situation. We're talking Web 2.0 when, we had the massive collapse and correction in the market. And that was in sort of the year 2000. Around then we had 9/11, and that was horrible. And markets went into free fall, and I ended up having to make numerous people redundant from my very big company at the time. I think at one stage I was employing over 100 people, and had to take a swathe of people out of my organization. And honestly, as an employer, it's heartbreaking. It's absolutely heartbreaking to have to do that. And I know it's really hard when you're on the receiving end of it, but just bear in mind that the people who are doing it to you are actually there to help and should be helping you and should be making the connections for you. And you can ask them to do that, and don't hold back from doing that. Don't just slink away and think, okay, that's that time done. And, I'm never going to ask them to help me. You're well within your rights to turn around to the C-suite of that company and say, do you know anybody? Do you have any connections? Anywhere in the world, could you put a cast out for me? Um, Definitely, Charlie, you're right. You don't burn your bridges, and look to the people that you've worked for in the past for a bit of help.
Yeah, I wanted to add that was a bit of both of what you said um, is sometimes a dark time becomes the future opportunity. Like I always say that um, doesn't matter how hard the market is, it doesn't matter how complicated things are. If you think outside the box and you actually expand your uh, insights and perception of things, you're gonna realize that there are opportunities out there that maybe it are not what you considered before, but that are there. For example, I heard people saying, "Oh no, the industry will be bad for years." But the way I see it is, you have a ton of talented people, and there are still investment around. And I truly believe that in the next year and the year after that, we're going to have a ton of indie developers popping up with all these talented people, because if they are really good and developed games all their lives, they're not going to just go, yeah, okay, I'm going to work in McDonald's now.
Mm,
They will use what they know best, and they will create new things. And because they have a track record in other companies, it will be easier for them to get investment. So it's a combination on everything. Like, if you didn't burn your bridges and you are casting a positive light out there, who knows, maybe you're going to be C-level on the new indie company coming there, or you're going to be helping build the next IP of games that is going to be, who is going to be employing hundreds in the next years. I think the world goes round, and just try to see the silver linings on everything. And again, we know it's really hard, and it might be a little bit it might sound a little bit hypocritical to say that, if you're, because we are lucky in being in a good situation and everything, but bear in mind that that happened to us before. I have been off
yeah.
before. I think we all have been laid off before. It's a shitty situation. You feel horrible, even if when it's not your fault. You feel horrible at first, but beating yourself down won't help.
Hmm.
What helps is building yourself up, and building the market around you up with you. Like,
And also, the other amazing thing about our industry is it's consistently and continually changing. You know, different genres of games come through, different technologies we start working with, and also regulation changes our industry as well. As more privacy regulations come in, more things spring up. So when I look at the sort of stuff that I was dealing with when I first came into this industry, which was the scourge of free to play. Nobody wants free to play, you know, and it was all like, horrible, horrible, horrible. And you know, and then the free to play became the thing. Um,
yep,
Equally, you know, it's the scourge of privacy now, and it's cutting us all off, and it's stopping us from making money, and blah, blah. But then around that, you see amazing, interesting companies grow up. I mean, I was just
Hmm.
talking to a company called Usercentrics, who create a consent management platform, which would need to be used by developers for the new Google, for the new regulations that Google is bringing their kind of rules around. And, you know, just looking at consent
Mm.
as a thing that brands want when they're advertising into games. They want to make sure that everything is legal beagle. So, you know, they need consent management platforms. So then you start thinking, oh my God, that's such a great opportunity. You know, how can I work with regulations, and how can I work and, you know, with companies like that, sort of companies on the periphery of our industry that are actually making a big difference in terms of bringing money into the industry. And those are all growing areas. So, you know, there is opportunity. It's just a question of making your, you know, expanding your, take your blinkers off, not looking
Mm.
at things just in the perspective of this is my lane. You know, I just work in you know, MMOs or whatever. You know, I now am a person in this industry, and where is the growth that's happening in this industry, and how can I take my skill set and my experience and my knowledge and apply that to for different companies, because I swear there are loads of companies out there who want to know what an indie developer or any developer or any person knows about the industry. They need the expertise, they need the experience. So just get out there and do it.
Really very fair. Like 10 years ago, this would be not what it is now. Like
Mhm.
a cell 10 years ago, a cell phone that could play Counter Strike, that you can play multiplayer online without breaking anything, it was unthought of. And now, like it's our everyday, and I think it brings full circle with the AI thing as well. That is the big thing that everybody's like, oh my God, it's gonna break everything. Will it, or will it break it in the right way? It will make people think in a different way. I think equally as the internet has good and bad sides, I think we can't deny that the internet is super important. We can't live without it anymore. But there is a dark side to it that we're living and dealing with it every day. I think new technologies like AI are the same thing. They will add, will improve things exponentially. Also, will pose a ton of dangers that we will have to deal with. But is life, right? It's all
Mhm.
pros and cons.
Swings and
Yeah,
roundabouts.
and that's an interesting thing in itself. I mean, there are so many low code or no code platforms that are springing up to support ideas that people with a modicum of technical knowledge and know-how can just play with. I mean, I was literally me. I'm not a coder at all. I'm a PR person, and I was playing with Bubble.io yesterday and sort of working out how to build an AI app for a little idea that I had for something I want to do in my company. And so, there are all these different opportunities just springing up that you can go down rabbit holes with. I have to
Mhm.
say, you can and sort of end up going, where am I? I really must waste my time doing all this. But there are so many different opportunities in AI. Particularly is interesting to me because I work with a number of AI companies, and I'm with Patty. I think, you've got the bad and the good. And, one of the AI companies I'm working with is a company called Pipra, which is help with using AI to help with early stage dementia and stopping dementia come as a result of post-operative delirium. So there's all sorts of new technologies that are coming up that can actually utilize the skills that people from the games industry can bring, because you've got UI skills, UX skills, all those different types of skills as well. So take a look at the different sort of things that are springing up, because at the end of the day, we're in entertainment, and
Mhm.
entertainment crosses everything. And that's about experience. What are you experiencing, and what emotions that you are you experiencing as a result of being entertained? And everybody is now looking at anything as entertainment, and they're judging things on what kind of an experience they're getting out of them, whether that be a Uber being coming to your door and you getting the right experience on the app there, or whether you're learning Spanish or French on Duolingo and getting the right sort of experience and entertainment from that. So, I think we're so lucky to have the games industry as our foundation, because you can actually take those skills and experience into other industries as well,
Mhm.
anything that's technical.
True. Charlie, do you want to add anything? I actually was thinking of you when Jackie was in class, thinking global, like game jams would be a great tool also for people in the industry to showcase and also to leverage technology for new things. I think that uh, there are a lot of new brands that now wants to venture into games because they realize that interactivity is a great way to deal with the audiences, and all this web of technological innovations and
Mhm.
experiences like the game jam and brands and companies. I think it's becoming an intertwined, uh,
No,
beautiful
definitely.
mess, I would say.
From both sides. So I actually had a conversation with Colin McDonald from GameStop Live yesterday about this. That game jams are a really good way to showcase and build up portfolio pieces. If you've been laid off, join a game jam And so you've got evidence like, yeah, I can use Unreal 5, and this is a game that I made in 48 hours in that engine. So you've got real evidence, evidenceable information about your skill set, how well you play with others, all of that kind of thing. And then on the other side, something that we do at Global Game Jam is we work with smaller companies who have maybe a new piece of tech or a tool or textures or an AI element or something like that that they want to bring to a wider audience that they can't necessarily financially contribute, but they're able to donate that product for our participants, and we can work out the financial side of things with them. But for them, the biggest benefit, as Patty was saying there, is that they're getting a couple of weeks at least of real-time user feedback on that product. And interestingly, we've done this before, where the companies actually ended up hiring 3 or 4 of the participants of the jam because these people know that engine. As Jackie said, they'd come to them and said, well, actually, there was this bug and we fixed it. Oh, really? Do you want a job? So there's so many ways that game jams can be used, but also let's not forget, as Jackie said there, we're in entertainment. The whole point of our industry is fun. So sometimes being kind to yourself, it's kind of like a busted holiday, but is getting together with your friends and just making a game and just having fun, and that kind of no pressure situation. That's when you meet people, that's when you're shining at your best light, and that's when a lot of positives can come out of it. And to add to what Patty said earlier, it sounded that we were all in very comfortable positions. We've not been laid off. I would always put yet on the end to that sentence. We've not been laid off yet or at the moment, because this industry changes like that and you never know. But another door
Very
always
true.
opens, right?
Very true. And as usual, we exploded the time because we do that all the time. But
Hmm.
I wanted to ask one last question for us to finish it, which is, if you could give one advice that is not none of the advices we gave before, but one very unique, out of the box, like, oh my God, this is weird advice for people that are suffering in the crisis. It can be from company point of view or people point of view. What would you do? And I have one while you guys are thinking, because I know but for people that never listened to podcast before, we don't script any of that. I don't tell them before what I'm gonna ask. That's why
Yeah.
sometimes they look at me like, what the heck? But, uh, the advice I would give is, find something that you are extremely uncomfortable with and try to do that at
Mm,
least once. So if you hate talking in public, find a course that, like, go give a workshop, like, even if it is not on stage, but go talk in public. If anything, find something that you're really really uncomfortable. Like, if you're uncomfortable talking, reaching out to someone that you never knew before, go do that.
mm,
It's a really interesting exercise to put that little finger outside of your comfort zone and see that you don't die by doing that. Like, the world doesn't crumble down because you did something that you are uncomfortable with. And then little by little, your bubble expands because you
mm,
realize that you can do things that you are uncomfortable with and still survive intact with your honor and morals and everything, like. So that would be my main advice, is find that thing that you're really uncomfortable with, and go try to do that in a certain extent. How about you girls? Is your weird advice?
I mean, embrace the weird. Always embrace the weird. I think if you can put yourself in a position where you sit down and you say, if I don't have any limitations, so if I'm saying I can't do that because of this, I can't do that because of this, so you take away all your limitations and just write down the things that you would really love to do, the not necessarily the job, but maybe the skill set you would really like to show, the areas you would really like to work in, without putting those limitations on yourself. You'll end up with a hit list that you may find another career or another job that actually was never in your head to begin with, but it's something that you're all of a sudden you're hitting all of these markers. And then think about the limitations and what are they? You can't do this because you can't code, but you can learn to code. You can't do this because you can't use Unreal 5. There's many fantastic tutorials. If you have the downtime, take this time. You've already given yourself a blueprint of what you ideally want in the world. So you can have this opportunity, but also embrace the weird. Don't wear matching socks.
I'm
Love
gonna do
that.
I'm gonna do a little kind of combination of what you were saying. There's a couple of things. Thing number one was when I reached my worst crisis of confidence. A friend of mine who was in HR told me to go and spend a day away on my own, leave my phone behind, my computer behind, take myself to nature. So I ended up I took a ferry over to the Isle of Wight and I sat on a beach in the Isle of Wight, probably somebody's private beach, to be honest. But I sat on that beach and I mind mapped all the things that made me happy and all the things that made me unhappy.
Mm,
And I kind of took a look at that mind map. And from that, I worked out what I could get rid of that was making me unhappy. And it was quite interesting because a lot of the things were self imposed. A lot of the things that were making me unhappy, I was doing to myself. I was making myself do. So that was one thing. And I really got a massive direction out of that. One of the things was a dog makes me happy. So I got a dog. It was fantastic. And that meant I exercised, and that meant I had responsibility, and I had love, and I had unconditional love, and I could give unconditional love. So, you know, don't get a dog. I'm not saying get a dog, but I'm just saying think about what makes you happy, and then try and strike out what makes you unhappy. My
mm,
second thing is that when I had the luxury of time, because during COVID, as you can imagine, we had to reset our company because there were a few companies who the first thing they do is slash PR, which is really stupid. But the first thing they usually do if they're in crisis is slash their PR. Um, so we were in this little bit of a hiatus. That we were lucky that we could employ people and everything else, and we carried on. We furloughed, and we were very lucky from that. I took that time to learn a new skill, and I learned to do upholstery. And I'm now qualifying to be a master upholsterer. It's just bizarre, a few years down the line. But what that taught me was I learned how to learn again. And that was really, really
Hmm.
important. That me, having done PR for like the last 30 years, had never really learnt how to learn. And
mm,
so that's helped me become a better teacher, actually, because I actually respect now how that people learn in different ways. But learning to learn with something that's just completely off kilter, completely out of what you do normally, is a really good thing to do. So honestly, capitalize if you can on the time that you have to do as Charlie said, do as Patty said, challenge yourself, learn in a different way, um, and just honestly, in times that we have right now, thank God for your four walls and the air you breathe and the water you
mhm,
drink and the food that you're consuming, because we are actually, even if we haven't got a job, in a very privileged place, most of us, that we're not being bombed, and we're not like our Ukrainian fellows or like our Palestinians, our Israeli people, all those people who are suffering. We have to get perspective on
mhm,
this without being political at all, because we've all got
mhm.
our opinions. But I just want to make sure that we have keep it in perspective, because there is hope. It will be okay.
Yeah.
Ending this lovely, lovely tone. I want to thank you. Thank you, Jackie, for being part of the podcast. This was lovely. Thank you, Charlie, for the help again. And I think this is the message that in the end we put ourselves in the beginning to say and we closed in the full circle, which is yes, things will be okay, even if
Mhm.
they look dire right now, but they will be okay. And I think it's fair to say, me and all the lovely ladies here are more than welcome. If you guys have questions, want to reach out, talk to us, uh, anything you guys know, find us. I'm gonna tag us on LinkedIn when I post. Reach out to, like, I think we all love to network, and we would love to keep talking. But thank you very very much,
Thank
and
you for
and
having me.
Thank you.
and I see you girls soon. And thank you everybody that listened. See you soon.
Bye
Bye.
bye.
Bye.